The azure flame was as small as the candles, flickering in the wind in front of Zhuofan's forehead. But with each sway, the flaming Lion King's eyes shivered as if it saw its end. It then took back its claw and sped away in the form of a ball of fire. It scampered off with speed rather than dignity, so much so that it was even close to falling at some point. A 6th-level spiritual beast, a king in the All-Beast mountain range, was now fleeing like a kitty while trembling from every joint. Frowning, Zhuofan touched his forehead, but the azure flame had already hidden inside. He only felt a faint warmth and concluded that it was connected to the expert who had appeared in his consciousness and touched him there. Hey Zhuofan, Xie Tianyang shook his arm as he questioned. Be honest with me, are you absolutely positive that you are human? Cut the crap, what else would I be, a demon? Zhuofan slapped Xie Tianyang's hand away. I've never seen a human scare a 6th-level spiritual beast with just a look. Xie Tianyang took deep breaths to calm down and continued. Did you see how scared it was when it saw you? As if afraid you would eat it whole. As brothers, you owe me an explanation. How many secrets are you hiding? Zhuofan rolled his eyes, then turned to Xuaningxiang. We were never brothers. Xie Tianyang froze, then he showed an awkward smile. But he was becoming more and more curious about Zhuofan. Coming next to Xuaningxiang, they saw her tear-stained face as she looked at the thunder skylark. The lion didn't take its life, but the birdie was too far gone to be saved. Unlike Xie Tianyang, she ignored the fleeing flaming Lion King and inspected the birdie's wounds. It won't make it. Zhuofan sent his yuanqi to check its state, then sighed. His plan on getting a thunder skylark went up in smoke. Big brother Zhuo, can you help her? Xuaningxiang looked at him with teary eyes, but he could only sigh. As a demonic emperor, he had plenty of ways, but the current him was weak. Xuaningxiang began crying her heart out, tears falling down the thunder skylark's face. The bird opened its eyes and looked elsewhere. Xuaningxiang noticed and spotted an egg not too far. But the egg was burnt black. The thunder skylark gave its all before but was incapable of stopping every fireball. It wants her young. Let's go find them. Xuaningxiang cried. Zhuofan and Xie Tianyang searched around and soon gathered 4 scorched and lifeless eggs. Wasn't there one more? Xuaningxiang nervously asked. The 2 shook their heads. The last one was lost. They couldn't find it anywhere. Xuaningxiang was sorrowful, kneeling before the thunder skylark as she sobbed, Forgive us, we are the ones who hurt you. The thunder skylark was always watching the 4 scorched eggs with teary eyes. Then her eyes flashed and moved her great body. From below her the last egg rolled out. It was intact but still had a few scorch marks on it. Zhuofan looked long at the thunder skylark and secretly nodded. Despite being forced to run around by the flaming Lion King, it knew what it had to do. It made sure to protect one egg without anyone knowing. And when it collapsed, it used its body to hide the egg, so that even if it was killed, the egg would survive. It gave its life to protect its young. Thinking about this, Zhuofan developed a deep respect for the bird. With a cry, the thunder skylark stared at Zhuofan, or more specifically, his forehead. Then it turned to its egg with a hopeful gaze. You want me to take it? Zhuofan assumed. It nodded, eyes filled with warmth for the egg. Zhuofan picked it up and sighed. It is badly burnt and, even if it hatches, it won't live for long. Unless... He whispered the rest into the thunder skylark's ear. It was first startled, then nodded in gratitude. Turning to her young, the thunder skylark closed her eyes in peace. She could now rest easy knowing Zhuofan would look after it. Xuaningxiang saw its life fade away and was crying her heart out. Zhuofan and Xie Tianyang sighed. They didn't foresee her being so compassionate even towards a spiritual beast. They would at most hold some respect, but never be so heartbroken about it. Oh, Ningo, it won't come back. Don't feel too sad about it. Zhuofan consoled. Yeah, I never knew you'd be so compassionate towards this thunder skylark just after meeting it once. Xie Tianyang laughed dryly and scratched his head, not knowing how to comfort the girl. Xuaningxiang wiped her tears and nosed. Why you guys misunderstood. It is a sad birdie, but I'm not crying for it. I was reminded of my home. Her appearance made me recall my dad protecting me every step of the way, taking care of me. The other 2 smiled dejectedly. It seems this girl was reminiscing. No wonder she was so touched. Since it's not for the bird, then I will take the thunder skylark's body. Zhuofan felt awkward as he stashed the body in his ring, but Xuaningxiang just nodded. Xie Tianyang, however, was aflame in anger. Hey, why do you get to have a whole 6th-level spiritual beast's body? A spiritual beast was a treasure in and of itself. The 6th-level spiritual beast bodies, in particular, made for great refining materials. Even the 7 houses seldom got such an item, and Xie Tianyang regarded it greatly. Looking askance at him, Zhuofan stated, "You saw it giving me its egg. Its body is the same. You stay here with Ningguo, I'll be right back." He left before Xie Tianyang could argue. Xie Tianyang wanted to follow Zhuofan, but seeing Ningguo, he stayed. He was worried for her safety. Leaving her all alone in the woods was not wise, though it made little difference if he was there too. Whoosh! In a secluded spot, Zhuofan took out the egg, the thunder skylark's body, and some black rocks. He began circulating his yuan qi, and his hand burned scarlet. This was a cultivator's most basic yuan qi flame. Weak in battle but useful in refining. And those black rocks were spatial stones used in making storage rings. These rocks were very rare even with all the spatial rock mines in control of the 7 houses in the imperial family. But thanks to Veiled Dragon Pavilion and imperial family endorsing the Luo clan, he got his hand on a few. And right now he was planning on refining a beast holding ring. It was far more complex to refine than a storage ring, and the Great Sex had a tight lock on any refining methods regarding them. Furthermore, it could even store spiritual energy. As spiritual beasts were nurtured by the spiritual energy of the world, they were the best ingredient for refining items. Case in point, this egg came from the Thunder Skylark, and its spiritual energy would help it recover. If not for this, Zhuofan was unsure if he could even hatch it. Now that the Thunder Skylark was dead, he desperately needed to hatch the egg and make it his demonic creature in order to enter the Lightning Canyon. For this, Zhuofan spoke a few words to the dying Thunder Skylark, and it agreed once it knew its broken body could help her young live. Either way, this was Zhuofan's way of showing his respect for the mother. Also, he would have taken this course of action regardless of her decision. Zhuofan pointed and the flame towered, fusing the ingredients with high-speed hand signs and a smile of satisfaction. He was close to fulfilling his objective. In the dead of night, stars glittered with Shui Ningxiang and Xie Tianyang, watching them bored out of their mind. As this was Thunder Skylark's territory, no 6th-level spiritual beast would wander here. It was the safest place for them. A sound broke the silence and Zhuofan appeared next to them. Shui Ningxiang ran to him in glee as Xie Tianyang looked him up and down. "What did you do with the corpse?" Shrugging, Zhuofan was blunt. "Tore it and ate and used it." Shui Ningxiang was startled by his reply, and Xie Tianyang rushed to placate her. "Ningguo, it's all right. The bodies of spiritual beasts are handled like this. But I don't know what he refined using it." Xie Tianyang knew Zhuofan was an array master and an alchemist, so being a refiner on top wasn't that far-fetched. As Zhuofan was gone for a day, he assumed Zhuofan had refined something. "Hey, did you know today is Ningguo's 16th birthday?" She was reminded of her family when the Thunder Skylark protected her egg and it made her cry. Zhuofan took a long look at Shui Ningxiang, who was blushing with a lowered head. "Ha ha ha, since it's her birthday, then I will give her a present." Zhuofan revealed a ring that had lightning running across it. Then he took Shui Ningxiang's hand and inserted the ring on her finger. "This is the storage ring I refined from the Thunder Skylark, Thunder Ring. I have one and you the other. They both are made as one and are connected with each other." Zhuofan raised his hand and sparks flashed across his ring. Shui Ningxiang was overjoyed inside and blushed as she extended her fist with the ring on it. Zhuofan did the same with his hand and the 2 rings let out crackling sounds. Xie Tianyang was filled with envy and roared, "Zhuofan, give me one too." "I'm out." Zhuofan deadpanned, "Is it your damn birthday too?" "No, but you have to give me one. Or the 2 of you, a pair of rings." Xie Tianyang's face burned hot. He no longer cared about the value of the Thunder Ring, but that Zhuofan and Shui Ningxiang wore a unique pair of rings. Seeing through him, Zhuofan sighed inwardly, "Oh, we've been through thick and thin together, so of course, I have one for you." Zhuofan then tossed him a ring. Xie Tianyang put it on in glee, then made a fist bump with Shui Ningxiang. Each of them got a thunder ring which would only react when another was around. Zhuofan spoke seriously, "What gift did you give Ningguo?" Xie Tianyang started and scratched his head from having nothing of value on him. Suddenly, he turned to the burrowing mouse and pointed, "Ningguo likes playing with it, so I'm giving it to her. Get lost, it has long stopped being yours." Zhuofan jabbed. Xie Tianyang snapped in anger, "Isn't it all you're doing?" The 2 began quarreling while Shui Ningxiang stood content at the side with a smile. Absent-mindedly looking at the thunder ring, she wished the time would stop so that the 3 of them would stay worry-free. After a long night, they began their trek back first thing in the morning. But 10,000 miles out, a huge bird had its eye on each and every movement of theirs. Blue flames wreathed its body, and with every flap of its wings it flew deeper into the Albice mountain range. The trio returned to the second area using the same method as before. Then they soon arrived at the first area. With the first step into safety, their hearts started easing up. Their thunder rings flashed with lightning from how close they were. All that's left is to leave Blue Expanse City and we'll be safe. Zhuofan looked in the city's direction with a smile. Although he didn't obtain the Thunder Skylark, he earned much more, its egg and 2 dear friends in life and death moments. Xuaningxiang, however, was frowning, worry plaguing her heart. But we offended the 7th elder. Won't he set a trap for us? Unlikely. Zhuofan stated, he must have spared our lives because another greater danger was looming overhead, forcing him to flee. He must be thinking we've died at the hands of that scary thing. Thing, what thing? Xia Tianyang asked. Zhuofan only shook his head. He was out like a light at that time and was unclear what happened. But when he woke up he saw the destruction around him and came to this conclusion. As for why they were luckily spared, ask heaven. In any case, sneaking out of the city is easy. Zhuofan smiled. Ningo, what will you do after we leave? I don't know. Xuaningxiang turned gloomy, but then she looked up at Zhuofan. Big brother Zhuo, I'll just go with you. Zhuofan started while Xia Tianyang became flustered and said, Ningo, how about you come with me to Sword Marquis's abode? Not only will your clansmen not come for you, but even Hell Valley's people wouldn't be able to take you from us. Xuaningxiang happily nodded, all right. Big brother Zhuo, why don't you also come? I've never seen the strong 7 noble houses of the Tianyu Empire. Xia Tianyang wasn't too pleased about it, but since Ningo was happy he also relented. Zhuofan, for Ningo, I will extend an invitation to visit my house as a guest. Zhuofan looked at them for a moment and shook his head. I cannot. I have other places to be. If fortune smiles, we will see each other again. The two were startled and hesitant about parting. Though Xia Tianyang and Zhuofan were like fire and water, arguing every day, they went through hell together and came out as brothers. Hey, I truly welcome you to my house. Think of your brother, me, and come. Zhuofan snickered. I already said, we aren't brothers. Sigh, how can you? As Xia Tianyang was about to laugh it off, a crack was heard and a sudden pressure pushed down on them. No one is allowed to leave. Whoosh! A black figure appeared with long black and white hair. His long goatee fluttered in the wind and his eyes flashed as they landed on the trio. Profound heaven expert. Zhuofan and Xia Tianyang were startled and protected Xuaningxiang with their bodies. Is it an elder from Hell Valley? I've never seen him. Zhuofan and Xia Tianyang whispered. What was certain though, this old man wanted to wring them dry. But then Xuaningxiang jumped out from between them and walked cautiously towards the man, grandfather. Xia Tianyang was stumped while Zhuofan asked with a frown, you're Shui clan's only profound heaven expert, Shui clan's patriarch, Shui Dingtian? Turning a blind eye to the rotten kids in front, Shui Dingtian looked over Xuaningxiang. Ningo, where did you run off these months? I looked all over for you. Xuaningxiang hung her head in guilt and mumbled, sorry for worrying you, grandfather. Shui Dingtian sighed and tousled his dear grandchild's hair then spat. Did any of these runts misbehave? Xuaningxiang knew where this was going and was embarrassed. Grandpa, what are you saying? Humph, then all is good. Shui Dingtian rolled his eyes over Zhuofan and Xia Tianyang. Who was it that hurt my grandson, Shui Gang? Him. Xia Tianyang didn't miss a beat in exposing Zhuofan. I only met Ningo after. I never saw your grandson. Rolling his eyes, Zhuofan could only blame his poor luck and friends. I didn't know he was Ningo's brother, so please forgive the offense, senior. Then you elope with Ningo? Shui Dingtian questioned Zhuofan. What, elope? Xia Tianyang cried with a start and grabbed Zhuofan by the clothes. Zhuofan, explain it to me. Since when were you so close with Ningo? Shui Dingtian glanced at Xia Tianyang and turned towards his granddaughter. Who is that kid, to be even more pissed than me? Xuaningxiang glared at her grandpa, then hid her flaming cheeks with her hands. Grandpa is getting old, how could he mention something like that out of the blue? She was complaining inside, but her eyes sneaked a peek at Zhuofan. Wait, don't misunderstand. I only asked Ningo to show me the way and nothing else. Zhuofan gesticulated while shouting. Only then did Xia Tianyang stop. Shui Dingtian stared down Zhuofan, but seeing no lies, he spoke. Good, in that case, I won't be hard on you on account on your time with my granddaughter. Come, Ningo, let's go home. Shui Dingtian pulled her. But Xuaningxiang turned to the two behind her. Xia Tianyang was getting anxious, wanting to stop them. Wait! Zhuofan shouted. Shui Dingtian spoke in a cold tone. Is there something else, runt? You can't take Ningo, said Zhuofan with a stony expression, and I advise you don't return either. Shui Dingtian frowned. What do you mean by that? I'll be frank. We offended the 7th elder of Hell Valley and he recognized Ningai. I can guess he's now getting rowdy in the Shui clan. If you go back now you will die. Shui Dingtian was startled, then looked to see Shui Ningxiang nodding shyly. As if thunderstruck, Shui Dingtian trembled and stumbled backward before falling. Shui Ningxiang started crying and rushed to her grandfather, forgive me. Shui Dingtian tightened his fist as rage swallowed his heart. Then his killing intent-filled eyes landed on Shui Fan and Xie Tianyang. It's you who brought this disaster upon us. As long as I take you to the 7th elder, he will spare us. Saying so, he slapped towards Shui Fan. Shui Fan's foot moved a bit, making 2 of his phantoms appear near him. Then they immediately retreated in different directions. Shui Dingtian scattered the 3 retreating figures to dust with a wave of his hand, but the real one wasn't among them. The next moment, Shui Fan came from behind Shui Dingtian and attacked with a bloody hand. Blood palm. Startled, Shui Dingtian felt his blood vessels boil. He now felt it on his own skin why his son and grandson had lost. Shui Fan wasn't only strong enough to skip stages, but also cunning and hard to fathom. Too bad he wasn't in the profound heaven stage like the old man. Shui Dingtian vanished before the blood palm could hit him, shocking Shui Fan. At the same instant, a powerful strike came from behind and Shui Fan, who was unable to dodge in time, spat blood while flying. Shui Dingtian was about to pursue when a mystical sword intent came at him. It was Xie Tianyang wielding his star sword to strike Shui Dingtian's chest. As he looked at the approaching sword, the sky seemed to have calmed and he could only see the glittering sword moving. Profound rank martial art? Shui Dingtian moved his foot slightly and disappeared, only to attack from Xie Tianyang's side with a palm. Xie Tianyang spatted blood and flew due to the impact. It was thanks to his spiritual armor that he wasn't heavily wounded. Shui Fan and Xie Tianyang staggered to their feet. A profound heaven expert's power wasn't to be taken lightly. Without an array, they had no chance. That brief exchange from before lasted but a breath and the outcome was a foregone conclusion. The 2 couldn't even touch a profound heaven expert. Stop, cried Shui Ningxiang. Shui Dingtian turned towards his granddaughter and was startled to see her in tears with a dagger at her neck. What are you doing, Ninga? Shui Dingtian became nervous. Shui Ningxiang spoke between sobs, Grandpa, let them go, they're my friends. If I do, then our Shui clan will be no more. Shui Dingtian stepped towards Shui Fan with hatred and killing intent. Grandpa, take one more step and I will be leaving this world before you. Shui Ningxiang nervously pushed the dagger closer to her throat. Blood began to trace the blade. Don't. Xie Tianyang was frightened, but Shui Dingtian gnashed his teeth and pressed on. However, Shui Fan noticed the tears in the old man's eyes. Zu fan loga, ga, Shui Dingtian, yo beguten senila. You think taking us to the 7th elder will save Shui clan? It will only hasten your downfall. What are you saying? Shui Dingtian stopped and stared at Shui Fan. Sneering, Shui Fan turned to Xie Tianyang. Do you know who this is? He's from Sword Marquis's abode. By handing him over to the Hell Valley, you will make one of the 7 houses into your enemy. Do you think you can handle their wrath and prevent the downfall of your second-rate clan? Shui Dingtian became apprehensive. He spoke while scrutinizing Xie Tianyang. Impossible, you are trying to play me. I would have known by now if someone from Sword Marquis's abode came to Blue Expanse City. 7 noble houses' disciples wander the world, so why should they report to you? Clear those muddy eyes of yours and take a closer look at his spiritual weapon, his martial arts. Are they common? Even in the 7 houses, such a masterful disciple is rare. A chill shook his very core and Shui Dingtian staggered back a few steps. He knew that was a 4th-grade spiritual weapon and the kid was using a profound ranked martial art. Who could wield both if not a man from the 7 houses? Having Shui Dingtian right where he wanted, Shui Fan drove in the last nail with a sneer. You want to take us back to Hell Valley when it's uncertain if they'll even accept us. But if they do, will the Sword Marquis's abode just let you go? Plop! Shui Dingtian lost all his nerve and collapsed in a shivering mess. The Shui clan was under Hell Valley, but never would they think to step between the conflicts of the 7 houses. If it ever happened, the Hell Valley would toss them in front as cannon fodder. Shui Dingtian began to feel mournful and lost. This year is a disaster for Shui clan. Do we have no other choice but to die at the hands of one of the 7 houses? He could take these runts with him, but he wouldn't want them now even if they landed in his lap. Why, young masters, forgive this old man's rash behavior. I was blind to young master's identity. Shui Dingtian squeezed through clenched teeth and crouched before them to kowtow 3 times. Everyone was dumbfounded, while Shui Fan just took it all in with a critical eye. Xie Tianyang couldn't quite accept it and rushed over. Forgetting the fact he was Ningguo's grandfather, just being an age-profound heaven expert was enough to make Xie Tianyang unable to receive such a gesture. With the profound heaven experts, elders and title back at Sword Marquis Abode had to kneel too? But Zhuo Fan's hand barred his way. If you want to save Ningguo, show off your status. Zhuo Fan whispered, to which Xie Tianyang nodded with a bit of startle. Grandfather, get up. Shui Ningxiang had never seen her grandfather so humiliated and rushed to help him up. But then Zhuo Fan yelled, who told you to get up? Shui Dingtian shivered and was back on his knees with a red face. You. Shui Ningxiang was angry, but Shui Dingtian pulled her back. Zhuo Fan strutted before the old man and said in a clipped tone, do you know of our young master's eminent identity in the house? You heard him today, and us, the Sword Marquis Abode, will not let this go unpunished. Yes, I was ignorant in my offense. Shui Dingtian hung his head, which was already full of cold sweat. Humph, then we will take Ningguo. If you want to get her back, have the Shui clan or Hell Valley come for her at Sword Marquis Abode. Wait. Zhuo Fan was about to leave when Shui Dingtian grabbed his ankle. It doesn't matter if Ningguo offended the seventh elder, but she cannot leave, or the Shui clan will be dead for good. I cannot accept it even if it means offending Sword Marquis Abode's young masters. Frowning, Zhuo Fan eyed him thoughtfully and saw the staunch resolve in his eyes. Maybe? Ningguo. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with killing intent. He snatched Xie Tianyang's star sword and stabbed at the old man's chest. No. Shui Ningxiang panicked and threw herself before Shui Dingtian, stopping Zhuo Fan's attack just in time. Damnable and crazy punk. Xie Tianyang came to and took his sword. I thought you were just scaring the old man, not being serious. He is Ningguo's grandfather. Zhuo Fan spoke coldly. If you were to choose who dies, who will you pick among the two? Of course it's. Xie Tianyang hesitated as he got caught in a dilemma. Shui Ningxiang didn't understand what was going on between her grandfather and Zhuo Fan. Shui Dingtian, what do you need Ningguo for? Zhuo Fan spoke harshly. Shui Dingtian sighed. I know that young master's like my granddaughter, but she is already betrothed to Hell Valley's young master. When she is 16 years of age, I will have to take her to them. Because of this, she has tried to run from home so many times. With how the time is nearing its end, if I don't take her, our whole clan will perish. Xie Tianyang asked in Ningguo, is this why you ran away? Shui Ningxiang nodded sadly. Zhuo Fan watched Shui Dingtian's wrinkled face for any lies but found none, so even you do not know for sure. If it's marriage then it's fine, but... But what? Xie Tianyang snapped, Ningguo can't marry some random guy from Hell Valley. Come, follow brother to Sword Marquis Abode. Shui Tianyang, this marriage is fake. Zhuo Fan shot him a glance then spoke to Shui Dingtian. If it was about Hell Valley's marriage they would have come for her ages ago. But have you seen any girl getting married off to them coming back alive? Shui Dingtian pondered then shook his head. Hell Valley is one of the 7 houses with proper rules and manners. Marrying with our second-rate clan already deserves heartfelt gratitude. What other reason can there be? She is ready to be wed to someone and it's no longer our place to ask. Ha ha ha, that's exactly what they want. Zhuo Fan cackled. If I were to tell you that all the girls who got married to the Hell Valley's people died, what will you do? Will you still let Ningguo go? What? Impossible. Shui Dingtian refuted. Why would they do that? We've always been loyal to them. It is because you are so devoted that they chose you to raise a cauldron. Zhuo Fan declared. Everyone asked in shock, what cauldron? Zhuo Fan answered calmly, there are some demonic cultivators who train in a cultivation method that utilizes ghosts of the people dying gruesome deaths. But too heavy grievance would lead to an imbalance in the yin and yang. This would increase the risk of oneself getting devoured by the ghosts. Therefore, the purest soul is needed as a foundation to train in it. And 16-year-old maidens are the best materials. You're saying they want Ningguo to train some art? Xie Tianyang looked at Shui Ningxiang with worry. Zhuo Fan nodded, most likely. Do you remember the 7th elder's martial art? That profound rank martial art wasn't trained to completion and was weak because the cauldron was lacking. You think he'd go easy on us on purpose? They all gasped at the cruelty of Hell Valley, which was using people as materials to practice arts. But Zhuo Fan couldn't care less. Demonic cultivators were selfish, not cruel or humane. Anything that killed one's opponent was most welcomed. He recalled that one time back in the sacred domain when an emperor's stage expert cultivated this demonic method and killed 10,000 cultivators, the expert provoked the entire sacred domain's cultivators into an uprising against him. Even demonic cultivators rose the flag of righteousness, vowing to wipe such filth from the world. That was one of the rare occasions in which the two paths joined. Luck had it that Zhuo Fan was among them, witnessing this force on the move. He learned then not to incur public hatred if he wasn't the strongest. That was also why he trained in the dark after getting the 9 Serenities Secret Records. Even now, despite having the demon transformation art, which could raise his cultivation without a limit, he wasn't slaughtering left and right. If he get found out, he'd be the next target of both paths. The silence was deafening. It was so quiet that only cawing was heard. And even this noise only worked to darken the mood. Ningya. Shui Dingtian turned serious as he said, if what this young master said is true, it's best if you leave. Grandfather, Shui Ningxiang looked at him in tears. Shui Dingtian smiled, don't worry, I'll go back and find out the truth. If it isn't like what this young master said, then I will come back to get you and proceed with the marriage. He ruffled her hair and flew away. Watching his departing figure, Shui Ningxiang sniffed in tears. Big brother Zhuo, will my grandfather be all right? Zhuo Fan's conjectures were always spot on and Shui Ningxiang wished to know her grandfather's fate. She wanted him to say her grandfather would be fine, that her clan would be fine. But Zhuo Fan shook his head. I'm sorry if he doesn't return, your clan still might live for a while. But now all of them will die. Shui Ningxiang was shocked to the core and tears never stopped falling. Xie Tianyang began cursing to hide his sadness. I hate, you're not that damn insidious demon's match in reading people, so how can you say they'll all die if he returns? I think a profound heaven expert would make the insidious demon think twice. Humph, that is where you're wrong. I may not be as sharp as him when it comes to picking up one's intentions, but we are all humans and I can tell a thing or two of his actions. First, we offended him, and since he determined the identity of Shui Ningxiang during our fight, he would think that the Shui clan betrayed Hell Valley. He is bound to kill them to the last woman and child. But at that time, old man Shui came to find Ning'ai. In this case, Zhuo Fan paused then sighed. Until he knew the whereabouts of the profound heaven expert, he would keep them alive to draw your grandfather. Once old man Shui returns, there will be nothing holding him back. Bullshit. A profound heaven expert is an elder in the 7 houses. I don't believe he has such nerve to slaughter a profound heaven expert's entire clan. Xie Tianyang saw Shui Ningxiang's expression turn darker and roared at Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan shook his head. Exactly because Shui clan has a profound heaven expert, he would wait for Shui Dingtian to return before wiping them all off. In addition, you're wrong about something. A profound heaven expert is not strong at all, but a free one is. Why do you think he kneeled before us? He didn't do it for the 2 of us, but for the sword Marquis abode behind you. He didn't kneel for himself either, but for the Shui clan. If he were a rogue cultivator, free of responsibility, killing us would be a matter of fact. But Xie Tianyang wanted to retort but found nothing to refute him with. He knew of this all too well, but the sorrowful look on Shui Ningxiang pushed him to find her some solace. But Zhuo Fan's words stabbed Shui Ningxiang's frail heart like a dagger. At this point, Xie Tianyang wanted to punch him. Can't you have some sympathy for Ning'ai? All right, stop fighting. Shui Ningxiang shouted, Big brother Zhuo, I know what you said is reasonable. Tell me then, if I go back as a cauldron, can I save my clan? Xie Tianyang was appalled, and Ning'ai, don't. Zhuo Fan looked her in the eye, but all he saw was an unwavering will and nodded. Even the magnificent and grand 7th elder of Hell Valley has no other way to train in that martial art. From this it is obvious how much the Hell Valley lacks cauldrons. Doing this is likely to work, but there is no but as long as it works. Shui Ningxiang waved and breathed out as if to get out all the worries off her chest. She was smiling, but the 2 felt their hearts heavy from the tears flowing down Shui Ningxiang's cheeks. Big brother Zhuo, big brother Tianyang, thank you for taking care of me these past months. We shall part ways, just that. Shui Ningxiang sniffed. I've never once gone outside the city, never seen Sword Marquis' abode. It's my only regret. She waved with a smile and left. Xie Tianyang's eyes were tinted red. They both knew what this girl was about to do. Ning'ai. Xie Tianyang stepped forward, but Shui Ningxiang's delicate voice reached them before he could take a second. Please don't try to use force. I know I am not your match, but I will hate you for all my life and will never listen to you 2 again. Xie Tianyang fell to his knees and watched her distancing figure in pain. Hey, Zhuo Fan, Ning'ai left. Can she save Shui clan? He asked gloomily. For some time. Zhuo Fan shook his head, his face serene. Once Ning'ai's use as cauldron expires, Shui clan would have outlived its usefulness. Why did you let her leave then? Xie Tianyang bit his lip until he drew blood as his words were spoken with an edge. Zhuo Fan stared him in the eye. At least Ningyo will leave this world at peace, believing her clan will be kept safe. Bastard! Bam! Xie Tianyong stood up and punched Zhuo Fan's face and sent him 10 meters flying. You betrayed Ningyo again. Roaring, Xie Tianyong rushed after Xuaningxiang. What are you going to do? Zhuo Fan wiped the blood from his mouth and stood up. I'm going to save her. Xie Tianyong was dead serious. Just you. Zhuo Fan jabbed. How can a bone-tempering cultivator fight against a profound heaven expert? You saw what happened just now? You know the difference between the bone-tempering stage and profound heaven stage. It's not just about being unable to fly but also about speed. So what? Tightening his fists, Xie Tianyong spat. It's better than doing nothing like you. We clearly had the chance to end that insidious demon last time. Last time we had the element of surprise and an array in place. In an array, no matter how fast he is, we can deal with him. But how will I set an array now? Are you telling me to set one right under his nose, then ask him to kindly step inside? Xie Tianyong understood the meaning behind Zhuo Fan's words but couldn't accept his manner. Ningyo fought through life and death with them, and now Zhuo Fan was just going to sit there and do nothing. Zhuo Fan, I always knew there was no worth in trusting you. But as a man, good or bad, they are duty-bound to fulfill their promise. You promised to take Ningyo out, and if you don't, you'll be nothing more than a coward. Roaring, Xie Tianyong sped up in his rush. If you go, you can only watch, powerless to do anything. I will still go. I would rather die than be a coward. Watching Xie Tianyong chasing Ningyo, Zhuo Fan tightened his fists and muttered, Who said I'm any different? Then he turned around and entered the forest. In a cave, 15 minutes later, Zhuo Fan set up a concealing array, then drew an odd pattern on the ground and placed spirit stones at key locations. Then he spread diamond sand across the entire pattern. Finally, his hand flashed and a pair of wings with streaks of lightning across them appeared in the center of this pattern. This was the secret body refining art from the Nine Serenities Secret Records. It would make use of demon transformation art to refine the ingredients and transform one's flesh into diamond body. This was far crueler than the wraith art he gave to Captain Pang. Wraith art was a cultivation method for humans to refine their body, but this secret art treated the human body as a medium in refining it just like a demonic treasure. The results were outstanding, of course, invincible and tough as steel. But the process was excruciating, 1,000 times more miserable than the wraith art. To imagine, this process involved cutting one's body inch by painful inch if one wanted to refine his body with ingredients suited for demonic treasures. It was so dreadful that one would find death a blessing. In the past, before he even found the Nine Serenities Secret Records, Zhuo Fan wouldn't train in wraith art even if he had it. Because it was too inhuman, too brutal, despite how much strength it gave back. And here he was using a method even more excruciating and dangerous. But this was also the only way he could improve his strength in a short time. If he wasn't stronger than that cunning and deceitful insidious demon, his success wasn't certain. With his heart at peace, his eyes filled with resolve, Zhuo Fan made a hand sign. In an instant, the strange pattern shined brightly and started to churn. As it spun, the diamond sand trickled towards a small vortex in the center and entered inside the cross-legged body of Zhuo Fan. Speck by diamond speck sunk into Zhuo Fan's body as the array turned. The sand acted like minute needles boring through his muscles and drawing blood. All diamond sand that touched him pierced his body with no exception. 1 or 2 specks he could bear, but 100, 1,000, they were beginning to take its toll on him, and all this while he could only gnash his teeth. When the number reached millions, his whole body was soaked in blood. And this blood all came from pin-sized holes left behind by the diamond speck, akin to a very fine sieve. Looking closely, the diamond sand had ruined his muscles, turning them to mush. And this was only the beginning, yet the pain was so excruciating, worse than any torture. Death by 1,000 cuts, quite literally. However, to speed up his increase in power, Zhuo Fan still bore through it with clenched teeth, unwilling to utter even a grunt. Fine sweat ran over his body, testament to the pain. Even the mighty demonic emperor was reduced to a shivering mess. Then, Zhuo Fan's eyes narrowed as he cried out, unable to endure another million specks piercing his skin and muscles. He yelled and howled from the pain, but knew he had to stop and soon closed his mouth shut. In his heart he knew this body refining method would remake his entire body from the inside out, replacing his all with diamond sand. So much so he would become an unbreakable diamond. But before that, he would have to endure this agony. Yet this was just the flesh, it would soon be followed by the bones and inner organs. Zhuo Fan could only grit his teeth and follow through. If not for wishing to save Xuaningxiang, he wouldn't have chosen this path no matter how amazing the result. Too cruel. The strange array never stopped revolving, feeding Zhuofan's body with diamond sand. After 2 long hours, his muscles were broken down to the last fragment, then the diamond sand continued on to pierce his bones. Ugh! Zhuofan shook from the pain and a grunt escaped his clenched teeth. Yelling would only amplify his suffering until he could take it no more. To avoid his demise, he forced his mouth shut while his eyes bulged out of his blanched face. Damn rotten decrepit senile Nine Serenities Emperor. How the hell did you come up with this insane refining method? The moment the diamond sand entered his bones, Zhuofan spasmed. He couldn't even speak, so he cursed the first demon emperor of ages past in his mind. Had the demon emperor heard, his reply would be mockery. Did I push your hand? Who lied to you that a meager thing like you can succeed? Suddenly Zhuofan's body seized up 1 second and laid limp the next. His skeleton was turned to dust in that instant. Such pain filled his eyes with tears, but he was now nothing more than a pile of mush. And all he could do was lie paralyzed on the ground. There's also the last step, body remodeling. Zhuofan was sweating bullets as he sucked in a deep breath through gritted teeth. With his skeleton nothing more than a bone meal, the diamond sand burrowed deep into his organs. It didn't wait to stick to them like before but punched right through them. Zhuofan's organs were shredded and he was spewing blood mixed with flesh again and again. The blood seeped into the strange array and fused with it. Yet despite the constant flow of blood and the sweat and the pain, his lips curled into a sinister grin. I have prevailed. Now only body remodeling is left. Zhuofan's smile was wiped away by a wail. It didn't go as planned. The diamond sand finished with his organs and went for his brain. Be it a mortal or cultivator, the brain was the weakest for both, as it was the place that housed one's soul. Diamond sand was raining havoc in his very soul, his mind. Once it was gone, his death would be final. He felt as if thousands of ghosts were assailing him, a pain down to the bottom of his core. It was thousands of times crueler than the first step. But unlike before, when his mind was clear, the pain was now eating away at his consciousness. His soul was slowly being spent and was on the verge of shattering. And all he could do was wait for his demise. Ha ha ha, for me, the grand demonic emperor, to die at my own hands. How ironic. If only I knew how wretched this body-refining method was. Zhuofan chastised himself as he grew weaker. All this while, the strange array never stopped spinning, and the remaining diamond sand on it was soaked in his blood, but he was too far gone to even care. He was hanging by a thread, one that thinned by the second. What struck him as odd was, why did he have to refine his body through this hellish torture? I must have gone insane. Why did I use this deviant secret art? Zhuofan shut his eyes with a trace of regret as his life flashed before his eyes. Since he became a demonic cultivator, he overcame all trials bearing his path, becoming the leader of the 8 emperors in the sacred domain, the first below a saint, a path filled with glory. Then he gained the 9 Serenities Secret Records, bringing him further joy, and though his disciples sold him out, he was reborn in the Luo clan as a steward. Then he met Xia Tianyang and Xuaningxiang. 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 Zhuofan's lips cracked open, muttering her name in his delirium. Then he flashed his eyes open and yelled, Ningai. He recalled why he chose this path. It was to save her. At that moment, the strange array spun faster and faster, encompassing everything in it in arcane power. Zhuofan's forehead released a blue flame that turned into tendrils and enveloped his body, to ultimately fuse into the strange array. Zhuofan had no clue that this secret body-refining method didn't just refine the body, but one's spirit too. Its purpose was to unearth all potential of a cultivator. If only the body was refined through this method, failure was guaranteed and death was a certainty. When Zhuofan was nearing death, he woke up to the reason behind his choice and his will to live thrummed with power. It resonated with his soul and allowed the blue flame in his body to fuse with the array. It was only now that this strange array displayed its true power. The array spun so fast that it kicked up a storm. It soon turned blue from the flame and melted the diamond sand before fusing it with Zhuofan's blood, flowing throughout his body. Golden blood soothed Zhuofan's lacerated body, breathing life into his muscles, bones, and organs. The blue flame returned to his forehead once the process was complete and fused with his soul. Zhuofan kept his eyes closed, unaware of what happened outside. He only felt his life renewing and growing with every passing moment. All this time, Blood Infant sat cross-legged in his dantian. Seeing the incoming golden blood, it was filled with ecstasy, swallowing as much as it could. It began to alternate between fading in and out of reality, to ultimately turn into a golden infant. It opened its eyes and they flashed golden, filled with vigor. Thanks to the blue flame, the pair of wings which streaked with lightning were turned into liquid and entered Zhuofan. In a blink, an image of a pair of blue wings appeared on his back with lightning flashing across them. Deep in the Allbeast mountain range, high up a mountain, laid a cave. And from this cave came the shocked voice of a strong middle-aged man. Eh? How come the azure flame I gave the kid is now gone? Did he remove it, or did he take control over it? Then laughter came from deep within the cave. Ah ha ha ha, I must be getting old. For that kid to erase it is already impossible, so how could he refine it? Not even a saint stage expert can receive my azure flame. Although if he really removed it, how will I find him? Well, he'll come around sooner or later, ha ha ha. The man laughed in his cave, and the sound traveled for hundreds of miles, but there was no spiritual beast around to hear it. Blue Expanse City, Shui Clan's entrance. When Shui Dingtian landed, he noticed that the place was eerily quiet. There weren't even guards around. It made his heart nervous and he rushed inside. He soon arrived outside the main hall. As he looked inside, he saw a familiar figure in the seat of honor, Hell Valley 7th Elder, Yugiki. The 7th Elder was leisurely nursing a cup of tea. I wasn't aware the 7th Elder graced us with his presence. Please forgive me for not welcoming you. The 7th Elder's presence here intimidated Shui Dingtian, but he forced himself to show proper respect as if all was normal in the world. Yugiki sipped his tea then smashed it on the table. Plop! And Shui Dingtian's heart sank with it. Giving him a cursory glance, Yugiki broke out in an insidious grin. Shui Dingtian, you've been under Hell Valley's care for a century now. We've always been kind to you. Without a doubt. Thanks to Hell Valley and 7th Elder assisting us, Shui Clan reached today's glory. Shui Dingtian forced his anxiety down, hiding it behind a smile. Yugiki nodded and stood up. He strolled before Shui Dingtian and patted his shoulder with a warm smile. It's great that you think so then. As he spoke, Yugiki's face twisted and clawed at Shui Dingtian's shoulder as he thundered. Why did you collude with outsiders and steal Hell Valley's diamond sand? Shui Dingtian was shaking in fear and fell on his knees to kowtow. 7th Elder. This is a misunderstanding. The Shui Clan has been nothing but loyal to Hell Valley. We would never do such a thing. Ha ha ha, there was a time I thought the same, that you wouldn't be taking advantage of our kindness then move behind our backs. But that time has long passed. Grunting, Yugiki slapped the table to splinters and barked, Where is your grandchild, Shui Ningxiang? Shui Dingtian stammered for a response, but words left him. Humph, I will tell you. She and Tu Ron stole my diamond sand and they now lie dead in Allbeast mountain range. Yugiki's brow shook as he recalled the dreadful howl he heard at that time. If he had stayed a moment longer, he'd be a goner. Despite not finishing the trio off, he assumed the monster would have finished the job with how wounded they were. He thought ruefully about this event. Shui Ningxiang was of use to him, but now she was gone. He came back empty-handed too, no diamond sand and neither a cauldron. Sighing, Yugiki placed his rage on the Shui Clan. Men, bring them in. Yugiki clapped and 3 bone-tempering experts pulled 3 people in chains. Shui Dingtian was filled with sorrow and tears fell as he looked at them. They were Shui Wanlong and his sons, Shui Gang and Shui Lin. Heavy hooks dug deep into their shoulders, locking their clavicles in place and sealing their cultivation. From the bruises and wounds all over their bodies, it was clear how close they were to breathing their last. 7th Elder. Shui Dingtian bellowed and stared down the smirking Yugiki with bloodshot eyes. Shui Clan sacrificed its all this past century for Hell Valley in defending Blue Expanse City. Is this how Hell Valley repays its vassal clan's hard work? Hehehe, your second-rate clan is nothing but garbage. Hell Valley can have as many as it wants. To me, you're no vassals but somewhat useful watchdogs. We throw you a bone, a reward, and you should be skipping around in joy. When a dog starts raising questions to his master about getting credit for its hard work, it must be put down. Yugiki cackled. Unable to bear Yugiki's mockery any further, Shui Dingtian clenched his fist and unleashed his fury. Exerting his pressure as a profound heaven expert, he pushed back the 3 bone-tempering experts around him while Yugiki just watched on with naked killing intent. It seems that the watchdog wants to take a bite out of its master, hehehe. Then it's time to replace it. Yugiki. In his entire life, this was the first time Shui Dingtian uttered the 7th Elder's taboo name out of sheer rage. Let me ask you, isn't Ningo's marriage just the cover to use her as a cauldron and practice martial arts? Yugiki looked at him in surprise before laughing. Ha ha ha, I used to look down on you every time, but look at how smart you are. We've been at it for so long yet you're the only vassal clan that figured it out. So that's why you defected, it's all for a silly girl. Bastard! Shui Dingtian's fury exploded and rushed with his entire yuan qi laid bare. I'll kill you. Yugiki sneered, sidestepping Shui Dingtian's palm and delivering an attack of his own. Bam! The hit on his chest upset his blood flow and Shwedingtian spat blood as he tumbled backward. Yugiki made use of Shwedingtian's prone condition and delivered 2 more palm attacks. Shwedingtian felt his chest burning and he spurted blood like a fountain. Ha ha ha, Shwedingtian, you think you have what it takes to kill me? You're nothing but a greenhorn profound heaven stage cultivator that just broke through, while I am in the 3rd layer. You are at the bottom and I am at the peak. You will never overcome this chasm. Yugiki then dealt another palm attack with bloodthirsty eyes. Old coot, die. But go in peace knowing that your son and grandsons will follow you. Powerless to do anything, Shwedingtian closed his eyes awaiting the final strike. Such an ending he never wished for his Shwe clan. But at the very least, his dear granddaughter escaped this calamity. Shwedingtian was relieved that Yugiki assumed her to be dead and wouldn't search for her. Stop! A high-pitched cry was heard and Yugiki stopped his attack midway. Looking ahead, he saw Shwedingtian at the gate, holding a dagger to her neck. You're alive. Yugiki was in shock. His sole reason for coming to this clan was to have her as a cauldron. Shwedingtian took in the sight of her suffering family, her grandfather beaten to a pulp, and her eyes teared. She only had hatred towards Yugiki for his cruelty. Dagger inching at her throat, Shwedingtian threatened, if you still want me as a cauldron, release them. Or I will take my life right here and now. Yugiki mocked, Hehehe, Ninga, get off your high horse. We do need you to practice martial arts, but you aren't irreplaceable. You have nothing to bargain with. Shwedingtian was startled and worried not her heart, but she recalled Jofan's analysis and showed her white neck as she mocked, 7th Elder, you can't lie to me. I know Hell Valley lacks cauldrons, I know of my value. Since you do not care, then I will die along with my family. Shwedingtian then traced her dagger along her neck and blood trickled. Ningar, Norge? Stop! Shwedingtian and Yugiki cried at once. Shwedingtian looked down on Yugiki as 7th Elder. It seems to me that you're not yet ready to let me go. Yugiki's ruthless eyes flashed. Is that runt still alive? Shwedingtian avoided his gaze. She knew who he was talking about. He died in Albeast mountain range and you can go look for his body if you want to. But I'm afraid spiritual beasts would have devoured it by now. Humph, don't try to lie to me. Yugiki sneered. I have many enemies, but that runt was the first to bring me to such a state, coming back empty-handed and heavily wounded. Chuckling, Yugiki continued, Girlie, don't take this the wrong way, but you do not have what it takes to see through me. That runt must have told you. Shwedingtian only stared back, to which Yugiki shook his head. In any case, I will have to take a step back. Since you put me on the spot, I will not take your family's lives. Really? Shwedingtian was about to go help her grandfather enjoy, but Yugiki shook his hand and a hook bit into Shwedingtian. Ah! A wail of agony resounded and Shwedingtian blacked out. His chest was soaked in blood and his clavicle was pierced, just like his son's. Yugiki, you! I said I won't kill them, but your grandfather is a profound heaven expert. I have to make sure he falls in line. I will, of course, let them go once we're at Hell Valley. You better honor your word. Shwedingtian stared at him. Nodding, Yugiki snickered. How could I lie when you're so valuable? Men, take Miss Ninga to rest. We will return to Hell Valley on the morrow. An elegant youth arrived next to Shwedingtian along with 2 servants. Joafan would have recognized him in an instant. He was Yuming, who infiltrated Blackwind Mountain as Yangming and later escaped Wengay City. Standing next to Shwedingtian, Yuming snickered, So you are the cauldron for my senior's use? I have to say, you sure are pretty. Shwedingtian snorted and turned to look at her family as she left accompanied by the servants. Yuming shrugged then went to Yugiki. Master, what would you like us to do in regards to Luo clan? We have suffered greatly at the hands of their steward, Joafan. Shwedingtian's pace faltered at the name. Did you tell anyone else that he killed 2 of our elders? No. Yuming was cautious. Even if I do, no one would believe me. Ha ha ha, I didn't believe it either. But a few months back, I met a freak of nature that countered everything I threw at him. With how large the world is, there are bound to be some monsters out there. Master, then, Yuming spoke softly. Shaking his head, Yugiki's eyes flashed with killing intent. We will deal with this runt first, then think of a way to end that Joafan. Or these 2 whelps will one day be Hell Valley's nightmare. Shwedingtian was worried sick at his words and picked up the pace. She was worried since Yugiki had set his eyes on Joafan because of her. Yet none of them knew that the 2 whelps were one and the same. The night seemed endless to Shwedingtian as her heart was unable to find peace. At dawn, the first rays of sunlight washed over the unusually quiet Shwe clan's small courtyard. A dozen servants were already tending to Shui Ningxiang's preparations. Meanwhile, a shockwave passed through the first area of Albe's mountain range and exposed a pitch-black cave. A naked man staggered outside in the gentle sunlight, giving his body a golden shine. His every step left deep prints in the earth, and even the rock crumbled to dust. He sheltered his eyes from the sunlight and looked around. He took another step and rested his hand on the cave wall for support. But his small action destroyed the stone wall completely and he fell to the ground. The man stood up among the rubble, however, the rock he was on also turned to dust. Taking a moment to adapt, his face now showed resolve. At a closer look, it was clear this man was Shuo Fan. Just that his every line and features were as if sculpted, exuding sharp power. When he opened his eyes, streaks of lightning sparked. Shuo Fan got a feel of his body and revealed a manic grin. Everywhere he touched let out a metallic sound. He was immensely pleased with his body, which was now completely refined with the diamond sand and was as tough as a 5th-grade spiritual weapon. He then touched his forehead and a blue flame drifted out. This was the flame that the mysterious expert gifted. He couldn't control it until now. But through the strange array's refining, it fused with his soul and became his soul flame. He could now use it any way he wished. Thinking of this made him burst out in laughter. The refining process was hellish, excruciating, and deadly, but the result was astounding. He was now reborn with an unbreakable diamond body. Even a profound heaven expert wouldn't be able to make a dent in his body. With but a thought, a pair of wings with lightning flickering over their surface burst from his back and lifted him 10 meters in the air. They were the wings of Thunder Skylark, a creature whose speed was incredible even against a profound heaven expert. This was why he chose to refine them into his body. With them, he became a freak, a true monster. Putting on new clothes, he flashed towards the Blue Expanse City like lightning. Blue Expanse City, Shui Clan's entrance. When Shui Dingtian landed, he noticed that the place was eerily quiet. There weren't even guards around. It made his heart nervous and he rushed inside. He soon arrived outside the main hall. As he looked inside, he saw a familiar figure in the seat of honor, Hell Valley 7th Elder, Yugiki. The 7th Elder was leisurely nursing a cup of tea. I wasn't aware the 7th Elder graced us with his presence. Please forgive me for not welcoming you. The 7th Elder's presence here intimidated Shui Dingtian, but he forced himself to show proper respect as if all was normal in the world. Yugiki sipped his tea then smashed it on the table. Plop! And Shui Dingtian's heart sank with it. Giving him a cursory glance, Yugiki broke out in an insidious grin. Shui Dingtian, you've been under Hell Valley's care for a century now. We've always been kind to you. Without a doubt. Thanks to Hell Valley and 7th Elder assisting us, Shui Clan reached today's glory. Shui Dingtian forced his anxiety down, hiding it behind a smile. Yugiki nodded and stood up. He strolled before Shui Dingtian and patted his shoulder with a warm smile. It's great that you think so then. As he spoke, Yugiki's face twisted and clawed at Shui Dingtian's shoulder as he thundered, why did you collude with outsiders and steal Hell Valley's diamond sand? Shui Dingtian was shaking in fear and fell on his knees to kowtow. 7th Elder. This is a misunderstanding. The Shui clan has been nothing but loyal to Hell Valley. We would never do such a thing. Ha ha ha, there was a time I thought the same, that you wouldn't be taking advantage of our kindness then move behind our backs. But that time has long passed. Grunting, Yugiki slapped the table to splinters and barked, where is your grandchild, Shui Ningxiang? Shui Dingtian stammered for a response, but words left him. Humph, I will tell you. She and Tu Ron stole my diamond sand and they now lie dead in Albeast mountain range. Yugiki's brow shook as he recalled the dreadful howl he heard at that time. If he had stayed a moment longer, he'd be a goner. Despite not finishing the trio off, he assumed the monster would have finished the job with how wounded they were. He thought ruefully about this event. Shui Ningxiang was of use to him, but now she was gone. He came back empty-handed too, no diamond sand and neither a cauldron. Sighing, Yugiki placed his rage on the Shui clan. Men, bring them in. Yugiki clapped and 3 bone-tempering experts pulled 3 people in chains. Shui Dingtian was filled with sorrow and tears fell as he looked at them. They were Shui Wanlong and his sons, Shui Gang and Shui Lin. Heavy hooks dug deep into their shoulders, locking their clavicles in place and sealing their cultivation. From the bruises and wounds all over their bodies, it was clear how close they were to breathing their last. 7th Elder. Shui Dingtian bellowed and stared down the smirking Yugiki with bloodshot eyes. Shui clan sacrificed its all this past century for Hell Valley and defending Blue Expanse City. Is this how Hell Valley repays its vassal clan's hard work? Hehehe, your second-rate clan is nothing but garbage. Hell Valley can have as many as it wants. To me, you're no vassals but somewhat useful watchdogs. We throw you a bone, a reward, and you should be skipping around in joy. When a dog starts raising questions to his master about getting credit for its hard work, it must be put down. Yugiki cackled. Unable to bear Yugiki's mockery any further, Shwedingtian clenched his fist and unleashed his fury. Exerting his pressure as a profound heaven expert, he pushed back the 3 bone-tempering experts around him while Yugiki just watched on with naked killing intent. It seems that the watchdog wants to take a bite out of its master, hee. Then it's time to replace it. Yugiki. In his entire life, this was the first time Shwedingtian uttered the 7th elder's taboo name out of sheer rage. Let me ask you. Isn't Ningo's marriage just the cover to use her as a cauldron and practice martial arts? Yugiki looked at him in surprise before laughing. Ha, I used to look down on you every time, but look at how smart you are. We've been at it for so long yet you're the only vassal clan that figured it out. So that's why you defected, it's all for a silly girl. Bastard! Shwedingtian's fury exploded and rushed with his entire yuan-chi laid bare. I'll kill you. Yugiki sneered, sidestepping Shwedingtian's palm and delivering an attack of his own. Bam! The hit on his chest upset his blood flow and Shwedingtian spat blood as he tumbled backward. Yugiki made use of Shwedingtian's prone condition and delivered 2 more palm attacks. Shwedingtian felt his chest burning and he spurted blood like a fountain. Ha, Shwedingtian, you think you have what it takes to kill me? You're nothing but a greenhorn profound heaven stage cultivator that just broke through, while I am in the 3rd layer. You are at the bottom and I am at the peak. You will never overcome this chasm. Yugiki then dealt another palm attack with bloodthirsty eyes. Old coot, die. But go in peace knowing that your son and grandsons will follow you. Powerless to do anything, Shwedingtian closed his eyes awaiting the final strike. Such an ending he never wished for his Shwe clan. But at the very least, his dear granddaughter escaped this calamity. Shwedingtian was relieved that Yugiki assumed her to be dead and wouldn't search for her. Stop! A high-pitched cry was heard and Yugiki stopped his attack midway. Looking ahead, he saw Shwedingtian at the gate, holding a dagger to her neck. You're alive. Yugiki was in shock. His sole reason for coming to this clan was to have her as a cauldron. Shwedingtian took in the sight of her suffering family, her grandfather beaten to a pulp, and her eyes teared. She only had hatred towards Yugiki for his cruelty. Dagger inching at her throat, Shwedingtian threatened, if you still want me as a cauldron, release them. Or I will take my life right here and now. Young Mrs. Marrying. Outside Shwe clan's gate, an obese granny yelled as Shwedingtian was led outside by 2 servant girls. The entire Blue Expanse city gathered around to witness the event. Yugiki and Yuming sported a faint smile. Everyone was happy towards Hell Valley's show of gratitude. Some people were even tearing, imagining it was their family's daughter getting married. Shwedingtian walked before the shocked masses. If before they were amazed by Hell Valley's power, now they were in awe by her beauty. Shwedingtian was dressed in a common wedding gown but lacked the heavy makeup other brides had. Yet solely from this, her appearance evoked a feeling of genuine beauty, not a fake one from excess preparations. Pure as an orchid, making people afraid of marring. Only this beauty deserved to be married into the 7 houses. The crowd gathered to see her smile, to wish her blessings. But their best wishes and kind thoughts only worked to burden Shwedingtian's already heavy heart. Everyone here envied her second-rate clan for their marriage with one of the 7 houses, unaware of the hell that awaited her. Slanting her head towards Yugiki, Shwedingtian asked in a cold tone, will 7th elder accompany me? Ha, but of course. It is my duty to protect Miss Ningo and Hell Valley's disciples' wedding, to safely deliver you to Hell Valley. The crowd was once again in awe of their kindness. However, Shwedingtian only showed a smile of disdain. What safeguard? It's clearly for monitoring us. At least once Yugiki leaves Blue Expanse City, Big Brother Zhwa can escape. Before she could breathe easy, Yugiki saw through her and said with a cold smile, "Oh right, Miss Ninga, I sealed off all Beast Mountain Range, even your secret tunnel. Those rats won't be able to escape from my palm." You! Shwedingtian flared as her face blanched. It was her clan's secret and Yugiki must have pulled it out from her father and brothers. Zhwa Fan's means of escape was now cut off. 7th elder, I want. No need to say it. Yugiki cut her off with a cold smile. Your life was exchanged for your family, nothing more, nothing less. Miss Ninga, after you. He then shook his sleeve. A lavish palanquin was before her with 50 bone-tempering experts around it. Shwedingtian frowned as she lifted her leg only to put it back down. She wanted to save Zhwa Fan, but Yugiki had her family's lives in his hand. She had nothing to bargain with. Suddenly, Shwedingtian's thunder ring flashed and her heart seized in panic. Don't come. Xuaningsheng shouted at the sky, startling the onlookers. No one except Yugiki understood the reason behind her reaction. With a sinister flash in his eyes, he patiently waited for his prey. Ningo, I have come to save you. In response to Xuaningsheng's shout came another. It was Xia Tianyang piercing forward with star sword at Yugiki. Sword intent made the crowd gasp as they scattered. Yugiki just mocked, a humph, so you want to die. A mere bone-tempering cultivator would find their death close at hand against me. Yugiki, unafraid of the fourth-grade spiritual weapon, struck back with a palm. Against the wind pressure of the palm, Xia Tianyang's sword tip trembled and the sword intent scattered. He was shocked but didn't use the sword to defend and added more power to it. A golden sword light flew from the sword tip and pierced the mighty palm, then it continued towards Yugiki. Space-rupturing form. Yugiki's heart tightened and he vanished from his spot. The sword light struck the palanquin and turned it into splinters. Sword Marquis Abode's profound rank martial art, flowing spaces 9 forms? Yugiki appeared behind Xia Tianyang and spoke with derision, you're from Sword Marquis Abode. How can a boy wield its legacy? Are you? Humph, none of your business. Xia Tianyang snorted and stabbed backward. This time, the sword no longer had the imposing might. But everywhere it struck, it made space stagnate and Yugiki was slowed. Empty net? Xia Tianyang bellowed. Humph, you don't know when to quit. Even with a profound ranked martial art, the gulch between bone-tempering stage and profound heaven stage cannot be overcome. Snorting, Yugiki vanished, only to appear in front of Xia Tianyang. Xia Tianyang was startled but could do nothing as Yugiki's palm slapped him into the air. When he landed, 6 bone-tempering experts surrounded him to make sure he didn't get up. Humph, disgrace für runt. If not for Sword Marquis Abode, you would have died by now. Yugiki mocked him. Xia Tianyang spat on his face and responded as if to spite him. I dare you to kill me. But can you take responsibility for the war that follows? Wiping his face, Yugiki's tone turned colder with killing intent. Damn kid, you think I'm scared? You made a mess in my city, so the Sword Marquis Abode won't say anything even if I kill you. Yugiki slapped at Xia Tianyang's chest. Xuaningsheng, no. But Yugiki was dead set on killing him. Stop! An aged voice echoed and a golden sword wave hacked down. Yugiki wasn't about to receive it. This attack was unlike Xia Tianyang's, it was backed by the power of a profound heaven expert. He stopped his attack and jumped 6 meters back. Boom! When the dust cleared, a meter-wide hole was in Yugiki's previous position, its depth unknown. A white-haired old man drifted next to Xia Tianyang and fanned the bone-tempering experts away. 8th Elder. The old man looked frail, his eyes cloudy, a stark contrast to the true expert he was. Even his right hand was missing 3 fingers, yet this hand was bony and showed its blue veins clearly. Proof he was a seasoned swordsman. Xia Tianyang cried in joy while Yugiki sneered, a Jian Suifeng, 50 years no see. How have you been? Fine, until you came to ruin my mood. The elder spat through gritted teeth. His cloudy eyes seethed with bone-deep hatred. 8th Elder, thank God you're here. Help me save Ningai. Xuaningsheng pulled Jian Suifeng's sleeve. But Jian Suifeng shook his head. Tianyang, this is Hell Valley's affair. We cannot get involved. Youngster, there'll be hell to pay if you poke your nose in others' business. Yugiki snickered, then turned to Jian Suifeng. Case in point, you lost your 3 fingers due to the same reason. Jian Suifeng's eyes trembled from rage as he stared Yugiki down. You think I would have fallen for your scheme if not for being young at that time? Ha ha ha, it would have been better if you had stayed quiet. Yuming laughed. I heard from my master about Senior's matter of the so-called undistinguished elder with rotten youth. At that time, if Senior hadn't lusted over a girl from one of Hell Valley's vassal clans, why would you force your way in her town, only to finally end with you ransomed by your glorious abode lord with 3 cities? Too bad about those 3 fingers, you had to leave those behind. Gritting his teeth, Jian Suifeng was so enraged that veins popped. Yugiki, don't take it too far. Or what, you'll attack? Yugiki made a sinister grin. 5 decades ago you couldn't beat me. And that hasn't changed even now when we're just 1 layer apart. You best run along and call for your 7th Elder instead. He continued to ridicule Jian Suifeng. I am in awe of the Sword Marquis Abode's 13 Sword Elders, fame shaking the empire. But you're the only eyesore among them, not worth a dime. You, a Jian Suifeng clenched his fists and shouted, Tianyang, we're leaving. But 8th Elder, you must at least fight for the honor of Sword Marquis Abode even if we can't save Ningai. Leaving like this. Quiet. Can't you tell he's goading us? This here is Hell Valley's domain. Winning or losing here will put Sword Marquis Abode at a disadvantage. He glared once more at Yugiki and said to Xia Tianyang, Tianyang, remember Yugiki's title and how cunning he is. Next time you meet him, make sure to face him with ample preparation. Xia Tianyang looked at Xuaningsheng not far ahead, and said in a determined tone, I know that. But if I don't save her today, I will regret it for the rest of my life. Ha ha ha, such is youth, ignorant of the world's dangers. Since Sword Marquis Abode's young master is so entertained by the idea of a hero saving a damsel, I will oblige by giving you a chance. Save not only her but also her clan, letting her feel ultimate gratitude towards you. Yugiki clapped and 4 bone-tempering experts pulled 4 large crosses, with the entire Shui clan nailed on them, from old to young. Grandpa, Dad, brothers. Xuaningsheng wailed and glared at Yugiki, a 7th elder. What are you doing? Acting my role as a villain. Yugiki then sent a grin towards Xia Tianyang. How will the young master play the hero otherwise? He then twisted his face and howled, attack. The bone-tempering experts took out hooks and clawed them into the Shui clan's members. Blood fell like rain and their howls rang in the air. They even found the strength to shout their lungs out when the hooks came out of their bodies. Not even Shui Dingtian, who was a profound heaven expert, was eased from this suffering. Xuaningsheng was crying her heart out and yelled, Yugiki, stop or I will kill myself. Then I will kill them all. Yugiki roared in return. Xuaningsheng was rooted to the spot, powerless to alleviate the painful cries of her family. Her knees softened and she collapsed, as did her mind. Snickering next to her ear, Yuming reveled in her pain. Girlie, get off your high horse. You're in no position to demand anything from my master. He is Insidious Demon, the #1 sage of Hell Valley. So many people from the 7 houses have fallen to my master's ploys, and you think you can best him at that. Ha ha ha, I'll have you know this too. It's because you angered him that he chose this course of action. You might have a bargaining chip, but too bad, you're too naive. And don't forget he has a bargaining chip too, rather close at hand. Xuaningsheng lifted her head, but all they conveyed was emptiness and tears. Despair and agony. She sacrificed herself to save her clan, but she was far from being able to win against this cunning fox. It instead earned his ire, and now he was venting it all on her clan. It's all my fault. She blamed herself for everything. Who will save me now? Xuaningsheng mumbled while looking at the sky in tears. Who can save us? Humph, idiot. Yuming mocked her but then shrugged. Idiot or not, a cauldron still has its use. Xia Tianyang saw Xuaningsheng losing herself and his heart was in pain. Jian Suifeng stopped him from charging over with a shake of his head and a hand on his shoulder. The farther we are from Yugiki the better. But 8th elder, Xia Tianyang's words faltered as Jian Suifeng's hand squeezed his shoulder harder, afraid the kid would make a rash decision. Plop! Xia Tianyang collapsed to his knees, his spirit broken, his pride as a genius turned to nothing but tears of humiliation. The girl he liked was suffering before him and he was powerless to do anything. Then he suddenly recalled Zhuofan's words. If you go you can only watch, powerless to do anything. It all went out just as Zhuofan had said. Xia Tianyang believed there was nothing he couldn't do, but now he realized how meager and weak he was. It seems that I was the coward all along. He muttered under his breath. Zhuofan, you bastard, where the hell are you? Xia Tianyang then raved through his manly tears and punched the ground until his fist inflamed. Jian Suifeng understood the kid's pain but couldn't help him. Suddenly Xuaningsheng's and Xia Tianyang's rings sparked. Only this time it was much stronger, similar to the time when the 3 thunder rings were close together. He's here. Xia Tianyang looked around with hope. Xuaningsheng shivered and her eyes began to regain clarity. She muttered looking at the thunder ring, Be big brother Zhua. Rumble. Suddenly lightning streaked across the sunny sky. It struck down among the crucified Shui clan members and blasted out the bone-tempering experts there in all directions. The dust rose as lightning still flickered within and everyone was now trying to perceive through it. When the dust settled it revealed Zhuofan sporting his manic grin. Yugiki, I lost the previous round. But the second round starts now. Who is he? Asked Jian Suifeng when he saw Zhuofan through the dust while being shocked by the feeling of dread the youth exuded. He was experienced enough to notice that Zhuofan had just entered the bone-tempering stage, and yet the aura and power the kid released held a threat to a profound heaven expert's life. This contradiction made it all feel bizarre. Xia Tianyang felt the same. Zhuofan's face, which was radiating golden, added an extra feeling of pressure. It was unlike that from a profound heaven expert, but felt like raw power was seeping in Zhuofan and threatened to destroy his last vestige of life. Everyone felt as if they were standing in front of a savage beast that was ready to pounce on them. He is a friend most untrustworthy, but also most dependable. Xie Tianyang smiled wryly as his body shivered. Not from fear, but excitement. He grasped the possibility that this new Zhuo fan could save Xuaningxiang. Jian Suifeng looked at Xie Tianyang in amazement. It was his first time seeing this arrogant and genius could show such confidence and dependence on someone. Jian Suifeng turned to watch Zhuo fan, to witness what made him so special. Ha ha ha, you not only survived but broke through. Yugigi sensed Zhuo fan's entirely changed aura but dismissed it. The way he saw it, this was merely confidence from entering a new realm. He would learn on his own skin how weak a bone-tempering cultivator was in the face of a profound heaven expert, and his confidence will deflate like a balloon. One thing did strike him as odd though. He and Zhuo fan last met a few months ago when the kid was in his 6th layer of qi condensation and on his last breath. Yet here he was less than half a year later, unharmed and even advanced to bone-tempering stage. His speed sent shivers even down Yugiki's spine. How did this happen? Yugiki thought, this run is a freak and must definitely be put down for good. Yugiki snorted, Mingo, go and end him for me. Zhuo fan rose an eyebrow in ridicule, oh, so it's you. That's fine, last time you ran away and left me with regret, but I will be extra careful in making sure to end our grievance this time around. What, you two know each other? Yugiki jerked back at Yuming, only to see his prideful disciple shaking in his boots. Even his face was twisted, pale beyond belief. Useless. Even with me having your back, you're still this scared. Yugiki spat at his disciple's cowardice. It was fine if no one else was around, but with the two from Sword Marquis' abode here, it made quite the embarrassment. A damn lily-livered punk threw all of Hell Valley's name into the ground. Jian Suifeng wasn't one to overlook the chance to laugh at their expense. Ah ha ha ha, a brilliant disciple matching a renowned master. Today I've seen Hell Valley's disciples staunch will. Yugiki was turning green and kicked Yuming, who face-planted into the ground. Oh, what a disgrace. He just broke through, while you're in the 2nd layer of bone-tempering stage. Stumbling to his feet, Yuming took a short glance at Zhuo fan. But Zhuo fan's wicked grin seemed to spell death, and so he threw himself at Yugiki's feet with a wail. Master, he is Luo clan steward, Zhuo fan. Elder Jian and Elder Yun died because of him. Yugiki froze a second, then flitted a long look at Zhuo fan. He finally seemed to understand. Zhuo fan's power wasn't limited to setting up 5th grade arrays. He also had a cunning mind that almost made him pay with his life. It's no wonder the 2 elders died by his hand. In Hell Valley, elders were seen as figures of respect and worshipped by disciples, unrivaled in the world. But Yuming witnessed the death of 2 and now fear gnawed his heart like a demon. He will never muster the courage to face Zhuo fan in this life regardless of his advantage over him. With Yuming in the 2nd layer of bone-tempering stage, he should have no trouble dealing with the newly advanced Zhuo fan. But was this notion still valid? Just look at him shivering. Yugiki sighed and patted Yuming's shoulder. To remove his disciple's heart demon, his disciple had to kill Zhuo fan himself. He stated coldly, anyone willing to capture him will receive my reward. Elder, I will do it. A large man cupped his hands. He was in the 6th layer of the bone-tempering stage. Dealing with an early bone-tempering cultivator was easy pickings. The other guards were sad that they missed such a chance. Zhuo fan was an easy contribution that just flew away. Yugiki nodded and turned Yuming's head towards Zhuo fan. Mingo, watch. This run is only good with arrays. Now that he has no chance of setting one, he's done for. The guard will soon bring him over and you can kill him yourself to remove your heart demon. Yuming nodded and looked ahead. Jian Suifeng frowned. Yugiki sure lives up to his title. He instantly figured out his disciple's state and a way to help him overcome it. Tianyang, your friend is in danger. Xie Tianyang looked at the always composed Zhuo fan and smiled. That punk never batted an eyelid. He will be fine. The roots of this story extend from novel being origin. Such a reply rose Jian Suifeng's curiosity. The difference between the two is of 5 layers, so the outcome should be clear as day. The large man thundered towards Zhuo fan with a cackle. He, you are a heaven-sent gift for me. I can't wait to receive my reward from the 7th elder once I hand you over. People die from greed while birds die from hunger. It all depends on you if you can defeat me. Zhuo fan snickered. Ha ha ha, you sure have a big mouth for one who is about to die. One fist is enough to make you behave. The large man's punch was as fast as the wind and as strong as a mountain. Yet Zhuo fan didn't look like he had time to react. The boom shook in everyone's ears. Xie Tianyang's smile was gone, now replaced with shock that Zhuo fan wasn't even able to dodge. He was able to contend equally with me when he was a chi condensation cultivator, so why didn't he move? Xue Ningxiang's face fell. Big brother Xue. Seeing that Zhuofan took the punch head-on, Hell Valley's guards started sneering. Hehehe, I knew he was done for, but never thought it'd be over so quickly. Did he really kill 2 of our elders? If he did, then I am first under heaven, ha ha ha. Curses, that moron got all the reward. Now I want to know what Valley Lord's gift will be. As the people started chattering, Zhuofan's threatening atmosphere soon disappeared from their hearts. Only Yugiki frowned, looking left and right. Ah. A wail pierced the noise of the crowd, and the large man was seen clutching his hand as he stumbled back. His hand was now a twisted and broken mess. Turning to Zhuofan, nothing seemed to have changed about him, still the same grin and the same demeanor. This is impossible. Jian Suifeng cried. A first-layer bone-tempering cultivator broke a 6th-layer's hand with his face? Xie Tianyang's eyes bulged out. He knew Zhuofan always moved with a plan in mind, but even he found this new strength of this youth borderline perverse. With him like this, he'll have no trouble even against profound heaven experts. The crowd now lost their mocking gazes and were instead rooted in place by fear and shock. Zhuofan never paid them any heed as he strolled before the large man. The large man was groaning while holding his bleeding hand. Before he could react, his chest was then punched through by Zhuofan's fist. It all seemed so easy, as if he punched through paper. Zhuofan then flicked his hand and the large man splashed on the ground after a wide trail in the sky. The people watched in abject horror, the bulging eyes of the man, his vacant expression. Where did this kid come from? His power is obscene. Yes, obscene. This was the only apt description anyone could think of. Zhuofan's power far exceeded the common understanding, and only this word could encompass the height he reached. It was common knowledge that bone-tempering stage was the best period in a cultivator's life to temper one's body. Even a profound heaven expert could, at best, destroy a bone-tempering cultivator's organs. A far cry from what Zhuofan did, running one through. On top of that, Zhuofan just broke through, making this even unprecedented throughout history. Monster. It first began as a whisper, but this word grated everyone's ears and they all agreed to this adequate assessment. Fear was painted vividly on their faces. Hell Valley's bone-tempering guards were no longer envious of the lucky man, instead, they felt sympathy for him. What rotten luck. Not only didn't he earn merit but threw his life away instead. Whoosh! Zhuofan was suddenly caught off guard by a white and black pair of chains as they coiled around him. Yugiki smirked, holding the other end of the chains. Damn, even with the kid's insane talent, he'll be mincemeat soon as he is locked by the 4th-grade demonic treasure. Jian Suifeng sighed. He was in awe of Zhuofan's ability, of his bright future, but a pity he'll die at insidious demon's hand. Xie Tianyang's heart tensed. He didn't foresee a profound heaven expert like Yugiki resorting to sneak attacks on a newly promoted bone-tempering cultivator. Although the person in question was a freak of nature, it was still despicable. Xue Ningxiang was happy at first but then turned worried. Zhuofan eyed the familiar demonic treasure and said, using such underhanded moves from the get-go, that too against a junior 7th elder, seems like you do not care about Hell Valley's name. Yugiki laughed dryly. You're smart to notice my intention from a look. There is hardly anyone compared to your caliber in the Tianyu Empire. You are one outstanding devil that not even I dare to neglect. N00V as set one and hosted the premiere release of this chapter. Y truly admira disabant el discautios natura. In any case, this junior came without any plan or scheme prepared, only to end you myself. Yet you're so prudent regardless. Yugiki's mood darkened. Reading between the lines, he knew Zhuofan mocked him for his yellow-bellied attitude. Even he had his limits, especially when humiliated in front of such a crowd by a bone-tempering junior. Runt, say that again and I'll make sure there won't even be a corpse left of you. Am I wrong? Zhuofan cocked his head and laughed. With your character, the faster you kill your opponent the better. Yet the first thing you did when I arrived was to send your disciple to test the waters, only to have him reduced to a shivering mess from fear to the point he ignored your orders. And left with no choice, you sent that buffoon to his death in the name of curing your disciple's heart demon. There's no need to even mention winning, but just in case he failed, it wasn't that much of a loss since it offered you the perfect timing to blindside me when I finished him off. And this is the result. Zhuofan enlightened everyone, and even Jian Suifeng was startled so much that his fear for Yugiki grew. He wasn't Yugiki's match, and if he were in Zhuofan's stead, Yugiki would have succeeded in his devious plan. Yugiki is ruthless and cunning to the extreme. Yet that Zhuofan isn't any better, discovering his ploy in an instant. The insidious demon showing such an extreme caution against a bone-tempering cultivator not only shocked him but everyone present. On the other hand, Zhuofan wasn't in the least beneath Yugiki in cunningness. Thinking about this let Jin Suifeng hold Zhuofan in higher regard. Hi, aren't you caught in my web despite seeing through it? Yugiki snickered with killing intent. I just need to twitch my arm and you'll turn putty. Zhuofan rose an eyebrow and laughed. Say, how did a sinister old coot like you turn so stupid? You think it's that easy to trap me since I saw through you? Zhuofan's eyes gleamed and lightning cracked. Bam! Yugiki couldn't even react before the chains were thrown away. Zhuofan now sported a pair of 10-meter-long wings streaked by flashing lightning. Thunder Skylark's wings? Xie Tianyang cried. Zhuofan had appropriated the Thunder Skylark's body for himself. But Xie Tianyang didn't expect him to refine its wings into a demonic treasure. Since the Thunder Skylark was a 6th-level spiritual beast, adding the diamond sand into the equation, the refined demonic treasure would also be 6th grade. Xie Tianyang was in glee. No wonder this punk barged right in here, he had such an awesome item. This will increase his chances of victory against Yugiki greatly. 6th grade flying demonic treasure? Yugiki's tone was grave. With it, you can match a profound heaven expert's speed, however. As he spoke, he flicked the yin-yang chains. The chains moved individually from opposite directions to seal Zhuofan's escape. A profound heaven expert's advantage over bone-tempering cultivator isn't just limited to speed. I know that all too well. Zhuofan didn't care about the chains, or profound heaven expert relies on his quick moves and melee, not something a flying demonic treasure can overcome. But then the chains were about to strike Zhuofan, one aiming his head and the other his chest. Whoosh! The pair of wings moved like independent arms and swatted the chains away. Yugiki and Jian Suifeng jerked in shock. This can't be possible. There was an ancient story that spoke of flying demonic treasures that could change shape at the wielder's will and launch attacks. But a demonic treasure was inanimate, so how could it do that? The people there watched Zhuofan as if they were looking at a monster. He sported a faint smile as he spoke at leisure, but when did I say it's a demonic treasure? While demonic treasures were refined as tools, Zhuofan refined the wings into his body. In other words, they were part of his body. He could let them out at will and make them move as he wished. He was no longer your average human being, but a human weapon. If the wings were a 6th grade demonic treasure, then his body had become a 5th grade demonic treasure refined through the method of diamond sand tempering. This wasn't something Yugiki and the rest could fathom when not even the denizens of Sacred Domain couldn't. The only ones who could comprehend this were those ancient talents who held the 9 Serenities Secret Records and were aware of the deviant secret method to refine materials into their human body. Damn freak! Even the Yugiki had to curse through gritted teeth. His eyes were bloodshot and his hands were poised to strike. The 2 chains flitted everywhere and soon became 2, then 4, then 8. Numerous chains approached from every angle like a rain of death, all aiming for Zhuofan. He wanted to beat Zhuofan to a pulp. But Zhuofan smiled fearlessly as he stood his ground. His eyes flashed and the wings moved like lightning. Only the sounds of cracking lightning and grating metal were heard, while not even a trace of the chains nor the wings was seen. But the flickering lightning was proof enough for everyone to know of the bitter fight the 2 were in. This was a profound heaven expert's speed. This gave a shock to the audience and let them know how weak they were against a profound heaven expert. But Zhuofan was the one who agitated them the most. A bone-tempering cultivator had such power. Xie Tianyang watched numbly with incredulous eyes at how deep the gap between them was. Even more so when Zhuofan of yesterday was a far cry from today. 8th Elder, what can you see? Xie Tianyang saw Jin Suifeng standing there in a daze without blinking. He never saw his elder so astonished in his life. Yugiki is pushing hard with his attacks, but Zhuofan is blocking them all. It is unclear as to the outcome, but Yugiki seems to have the upper hand. Jin Suifeng stated so, but his eyes never left the fight, afraid of missing anything. Xie Tianyang was despondent. His and Zhuofan's gap was now even bigger. Zhuofan of before won with a raise while now he relied only on himself. In merely a single day, their positions switched so much that Xie Tianyang was left far behind in the dust. Whoosh! The metallic and lightning sounds came to an abrupt stop. Zhuofan's expression was one of focus as he halted his wings while Yugiki was nowhere in sight. A sound broke the silence and Zhuofan's heart seized. He instinctively bent his wings. Ding! His wings blocked the sneak attack of the chains from behind, but a cold needle was speeding at his back. It was Yugiki with his 3rd grade demonic treasure, Twisted Needle. Hehehe, runt, what are you going to do now? Yugiki snickered. Zhuofan's wings were occupied with the yin-yang chains. The third-grade demonic treasure's attack came at an impeccable timing, right when Zhuofan's movement was sealed. Not even Yugiki could get out of this one if he was in Zhuofan's place. But Zhuofan only muttered, mystifying phantom step. Whoosh! He vanished from his place and the chains along with the twisted needle lost their target, throwing Yugiki off balance. Then Zhuofan came from behind using his wings as axes aiming for Yugiki's neck. Ding! With a crisp sound, the wings and yin-yang chains clashed again. But this time, their roles were reversed. The situation flipped in a blink, with Zhuofan now pressing his advantage. Even Jian Suifeng was affected by this sudden turn. Hell Valley's #1 sage, Yugiki, was driven to a corner by a youth. Seventh Elder, how does it feel to be on the receiving end of a sneak attack? Zhuofan's wings pushed against the yin-yang chains until Yugiki leaned backward. If I also had a third-grade demonic treasure, you'd be dead by now. Yet despite your efforts and the golden opportunity, I'm still alive and kicking, so to speak. Yugiki's face flushed and was gasping heavily to ease the rage within him. Zhuofan's words were an affront to his title. Yugiki wasn't powerful because of his cultivation, but because of his title as Insidious Demon, the #1 sage of Hell Valley. Yet Zhuofan was mocking his pride. The same as saying if I were you, I would have long killed my opponent with a sneak attack and wouldn't need to waste time chatting them up. This was the worst humiliation Yugiki ever suffered. One may mock his character, his devious nature, yet he would take them all as badges of honor. But never ever would he allow one to insult his intelligence. That was where he drew the line. Anyone who mocked him for a fool, he would make sure to give them a fate worse than death. Yet Zhuofan had him beaten at every corner and kept mocking him, with him powerless to prevent it. This brought a never-felt feeling of resentment. Don't get too cocky, damn runt. Yugiki's anger reached a breaking point. His yuan-chi exploded, flinging Zhuofan's wings aside. Then he swirled his chains at Zhuofan, leaving behind afterimages. Yugiki was at peak speed, and with the added effect of the yin-yang chains, he reached a new height. Zhuofan remained calm as he laughed. His figure darted around with the help of mystifying phantom step in his wings, moving even faster than Yugiki. The people were once again bearing witness to afterimages and metallic sounds clashing with streaks of lightning, but never a clear image of any of the two's bitter fight. They flashed across the entire plaza, one moment to the east, the next to the west, flashing in every direction possible and even around the bone-tempering guards. But since the people could only hear them and not see, they stood there in fear. One slip, one errant move from their part, and only pieces would remain of them. Eighth Elder, how does it look? When Yugiki and Zhuofan were at a standstill with demonic treasures, Xie Tianyang could grasp some of the situation. But as the matter devolved to such a state, he was unable to see them and had to defer to Jian Suifeng's assessment. Jian Suifeng, however, gestured for Xie Tianyang's silence as he focused his all on the fight. After one huge boom, two figures reappeared. Zhuofan crossed his hands casually, standing in the same spot, while Yugiki was gasping for breath. Zhuofan's nonchalant attitude left not only him but also Jian Suifeng in shock. Who won? Xie Tianyang knew but still couldn't help ask. Jian Suifeng was solemn, soon you will know. Thunderous booms echoed and a score of bone-tempering guards were struck down by lightning. It burst their heads and liquefied their organs. The other guards fled for 50 meters in anxiety while Yugiki and Zhuofan stood across each other, having known of this long ago. What's happening? Xie Tianyang darted his eyes to the corpses in fear. Jian Suifeng's eyes never left Zhuofan as he spoke in a grave tone. Tianyang, your friend is terrifying. I've never seen anyone like him. That Yugiki, he has never suffered as much as he has now. Xie Tianyang didn't understand, but Jian Suifeng continued. In their clashes, Yugiki was giving his all. They attacked each other again and again and made me believe Zhuofan was also fighting with everything. Then suddenly his speed jumped. But what? Xie Tianyang seemed impatient. Jian Suifeng revealed an imperceptible smile. But instead of ending this battle, he dragged Yugiki around, killing guards right under Yugiki's eyes. Xie Tianyang was startled. Oh, why do this? Why didn't he finish the old man off if he had the chance? Ha ha ha, this is where the kid is truly terrifying. Jian Suifeng's eyes shook and he turned serious. He did it to mock that old fool. An elder was led by the nose by a snot-nosed brat, killing a score of his men yet powerless to stop it. Yugiki, known as the Insidious Demon, was played around by a bone-tempering kid as a cat plays with a mouse. Will there be any pride left in him after this? Zhuofan and Yugiki are the same. Offending such a person would invite a world of suffering. Because their revenge isn't limited to killing you, but robbing you of all you hold dear, including pride. Death only comes after there is nothing left to plunder. Jian Suifeng suddenly laughed, feeling all his grievances get washed away. Only evil can fight evil. Yugiki was despicable in his ways for too long, and today he met his match in a little demon who has a heart just as black as his. How refreshing. Jian Suifeng's laughter rang in everyone's ears and jarred Yugiki's. The latter was burning with rage and was close to spewing blood. He felt miserable every time he saw Zhuofan standing smug. Zhuofan's power exceeded his predictions by far. In the first move itself, he discovered that Zhuofan had surpassed him. He not only treated this fight as a spar but also had the leisure to kill his men. Zhuofan left him powerless, especially when it came to schemes where Zhuofan was at his level, if not higher. Yugiki felt his head hurt, feeling weak and feeble for the first time. No, this can't end like this. If this gets dragged on for long, he will kill me. I need to end it in one blow. Yugiki had a plan in mind but didn't know if it would work, especially in Zhuofan's case. But he was left with no choice. His eyes flashed and flung the chains at Zhuofan. This thing won't work on me. Zhuofan smirked, readying his wings. But the yin-yang chains veered off from him at the last minute, aiming for Xuaningxiang. Xuaningxiang was rooted in fear, but Zhuofan appeared before her in a flash of lightning and flung the chains with his wings. Ah, isaite no. Yugiki laughed hysterically as Zhuofan, oh Zhuofan, I found your weakness. In the All-Beast Mountain range, you ingrained a deep fear in these old bones with your constant attacks, so I thought you came this time seeking revenge. But now I see it was all for her. And you think this changes anything? You will die just as well. Zhuofan stated. Humph, if you bore the same ruthlessness you showed before, I would have some misgivings. But you care for this girl and placed victory in my grasp, ha ha ha.